Hello and welcome to Open Dialogue. Noel T. Manning II here. We love talking movies, talking reviews, giving hot topics, and also talking to filmmakers. Really happy to have a filmmaker here with us today to talk about the film The Colony, or it could be called Tides, I guess, depending on where we are. The director and the writer, Tim Fehlbaum. Is that correct? Am I close on your name?
You're pretty close. Pretty close. Yeah, no, it was good. Tim Fehlbaum.
Well,
I'm
Tim,
also very
welcome.
glad to be here. Actually, there's nothing I love more talking about than about movies. So
Well, we
great.
really appreciate it, and this film, I love the many messages in this film, and I'm looking forward to talking about a lot of the other aspects of what I liked about this as well. It's a science fiction drama that has got a lead character that drives this film in so many different ways. Nora. And I got a chance to, who plays Blake, I believe is the character's name. Got a chance to spend some time talking to her about the film and her work in this. And I'd love to get you to give just a snapshot of your interpretation of what this film is about.
Oh, wow. Well, I can tell you maybe how I came to the idea of the story,
Sure.
and that maybe tells something about what it's about, because the very first trigger I had was a visual trigger when I, for the first time in my life, stand in the German Tidelands. I didn't know this kind of landscape where the tide goes away. I mean, are you in LA?
No.
Oh no, I was just in LA, for example, you also have tides, but they're not as
Right.
extreme as they are in
Yes,
this location.
I'm in North Carolina, so we do have coast in North Carolina as well. So we have high tides and low tides as well.
And it is not as extreme as it is in the movie at the beginning when it's gone. I don't know.
Not quite that extreme.
Yeah, so I, for the first time, saw that and I was so impressed by this location because, first of all, it's very surreal.
Yes.
And then also in a weird way, you feel the gravitational effect caused by the constellation of planets. So I thought, this is the perfect setting for a science fiction movie. Why hasn't anyone shot here a science fiction movie? You don't even need that much CGI because you can put the camera everywhere around and it looks just surreal in a great way.
Yeah.
And it was then when co-writer Mariko Mineguchi and I started to think more about the story, and we talked to scientists and astronauts and did our research, that it opened to our eyes that something I knew already before, but just talking to these people directly is even more intense. That it's very unlikely that we'll ever find a planet within our reach that we can possibly use as a habitat for humanity or any kind of life. And there was at the starting point when we thought about, okay, while a lot of science fiction movies dealt with leaving Earth, this might be about the return.
Yes.
And so coming back to your question, this is about a mission of scientists being sent back in a future we don't really define when it is, but in the future, after humanity escaped, the elite escaped Earth and settled down on another planet, and now they have a problem there, because that's another thing that we found out when we talked. The co-writer and I talked to these scientists, is that what we don't know about space traveling is how it would affect the human body, how this cosmic radiation, and so we came up with the idea that they can't reproduce themselves anymore there. So it is about the first mission back to Earth, or as we then learned later, it's actually the second mission back to Earth to verify whether or not the return for these people is possible. And this is what the movie is about. It's about them trying to find out if they could return and
I found it something that really kind of stuck with me. It was an engaging film, thought-provoking, and visually mesmerizing. I could not take my eyes off of this, and I found that there was this message or theme that sometimes the search for answers will lead us onto these unexpected journeys, and we may find answers that we don't expect or we don't want. And I thought that was pretty, that's how it spoke to me. I really loved the cinematography in this, the sound design, the production design, the acting, of course. I truly appreciated this, and I'm so glad I got a chance to experience it. And I know you've got two different titles. Talk about those two different titles. I guess it depends on where you're viewing this film.
Exactly. Yes, that's true. Yeah, first of all, thank you for these words. What you just said, I think you phrased it even much better than I ever could. So I'm glad. It's good that we record this. So it's
you can use that. You can use that in the Q&A later.
Exactly. That was about. The Q&A is going to be in German, so I'm a little bit more firm in German. But I will keep it in mind and make an interpretation of it in German. No, thanks. And yeah, and that's actually something that I'm glad that you point this out, that we wanted to make the experience when watching the movie as physical as possible, that
right.
with the camera work and the sound design and what you just mentioned, that you feel that you're really there. That was important to us. We had the idea that this almost should be like a documentary crew being with Blake on this journey.
Yeah.
Talking about the different titles, yeah, it's in America it's called The Colony. And in Germany and Switzerland, where it's being released at the same day as in the US, it's called Tides. Yeah, I think that we had the German title, of course, for the German titles first, and The Colony. I think it's a really nice title, so I actually like it too. I also heard that there's a washing powder in the States that's called Tides.
Yes, Tides.
This might be one of the reasons why they had a good reason to change the title. We didn't know that when we came out.
That's right.
So like, okay, maybe it wouldn't be good if the people just think about this washing powder.
Gotcha. Well, the shooting schedule, you shot in 2 different countries. Is that correct?
Yeah, in Germany and Switzerland. And
okay.
We started with beginning shooting on location in these actual Tidelands. I actually wanted to be, directors are crazy and they maybe not think about very practical sometimes, but I just said, I want to shoot the whole movie there. I want to shoot the whole movie in this environment. But then producers came to me and with a good reason said, look, Tim, it's going to be really logistically tricky to shoot that whole movie because the flood is coming twice a day and how can we do this? And so they convinced me retrospectively I'm lucky that they convinced me that we then move to the studio, and was happy enough to have a DOP, Marcus Förderer, who actually lives in Los Angeles and is shooting American movies, is a very practical guy, and he comes up with tricks that are very easy and they save a lot of money and they make shooting even more fun and hopefully at the end of the day have a good effect also on the film. And he came up with the idea that we then simulate this kind of environment in a huge stage in Bavaria. It's called the Bavarian Film Studios, where a certain movie called Das Boot, who you certainly know, by Petersen, was shot.
Yes.
And he had this idea that we there have this huge stage with just the sand, and we have the background, but not a green screen background, actually a photo backing. He has shot photos of the original Tidelands that we had printed largely, or backlit. So very old school filmmaking technique. And of course, in our story, we had the advantage that we have fog and water elements play a real important role. So if you have these real elements between lens, actor, and background, it makes it more, then you start to not get the feeling that you're in front of a photo screen.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's fascinating. Were there moments that you found yourself wondering, okay, am I going to be able to make this work? Am I going to be able to capture what I want to be able to capture? Or did you know?
Oh, you have that moment every day, of course. But I have to say, I had these moments much more before shooting.
Okay.
Because was so lucky that I had this crew and this production designer and also line producer and everyone who prepared the movie so well that after 2 days I didn't have that kind of anxiety less because I knew they all had made their thoughts had so good ideas on how we're going to schedule to shoot this movie that I then less and less had that feeling. But then it comes back in the editing room and it comes back when the movie's being released.
Right. But, and then when audiences are watching it, all of those
exactly
things,
it comes back to you. That's true.
Well, I several other things that really spoke to me and I found impressive. There were many scenes where there was limited dialogue. And then you had the unknown language, the mud language. I really appreciated that, and I know how challenging that can be to make it work for an audience, and also for acting talent to be able to engage in both that physical and emotional turmoil from not being able to speak what you feel. Talk about both of those things, the limited dialogue at times, and then the unknown dialogue of the muds at times.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. No, that's I just again loved what you said. Yeah, you should become you should help me with this tour here and making good PR for the movie. No, I talking about the language. Yeah, we talked about at the beginning when co-writer Marco Minigucci and I we wrote the script. We just said, okay, we made a research on how is language going to develop, and what we found out is that it would be most likely that, especially in Europe in the future, it would be a mixture of different languages: English, French, Netherlandish, Dutch, Spanish, and everything. So we made kind of with Google Translate, we made it start. That was the starting point, and then we had a linguist, Daniel Liddon from London, and she's actually her job is to help creating languages for movies. And she then then took over and looked at the grammar, that there was a certain grammar in it, and that trained with the actors and how to pronounce it and everything.
Yeah.
And then there was obviously a discussion, are we going to subtitle it or not?
Right.
Because a lot of dialogues are in that language, but we all felt that our main actress or our hero doesn't understand it. So why should we?
Yes.
And from the gestures with the actors and everything, you might feel a little bit, I think that's what they're saying. And yeah, so it's,
I'm glad you made that choice, because that's exactly, as a viewer, how I felt as I was experiencing what the character was experiencing. And that made those scenes much more impactful for me as a viewer.
Cool.
So
thank you.
Glad you made that choice.
Yeah.
Talk about your talent, your acting talent.
I will. Nora is. I mean, I'm so fascinated every day again in the editing room, and already by shooting, I'm so fascinated by her performance. And I think I can tell you how we. It was just she just auditioned for the role, as it's been done, and the very first time she just sent a self-tape, and we just watched the self-tape.
Yeah.
It's because nowadays often you don't do the direct casting anymore, it's just self-tapes.
Right.
And the first step was the self-tape, and I saw the self-tape also with the producers and Mariko Minigucci co-writer, and we were looking at her doing that scene, actually the very first scene when she wakes up at the beach, when the movie begins with. Yeah. And there was this effect that sometimes happens, and then she's actually she has a part that for the first time you actually believe what you wrote. You don't think about the dialogue anymore. You think, and when she says it, I actually believe that.
Wow. Yeah.
And it's not anyway. It's so in the seriousness, and so she brought about it. It immediately convinced us, and then she came to Berlin to audition in real life, and it was just again convinced it even more that we found Laura Blake, and in shooting it was just that she's a very intuitive actress. She's very much, she has to be completely emotional in the moment, even with a movie that is very physical. She has to have the emotions there, and I tried at least to open for her possibilities that she can also have this room for interpretation, improvisation and everything, and maybe moving differently. And I hope that this gives the audience a certain feel of authenticity that she brings to this character that she creates there.
Well, it truly worked, and your supporting cast, phenomenal. Yes. As well. And you had a producer, Roland Emmerich. How did that happen? That's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I think so too. He actually already executive produced my very first movie called Hell, which was quite some time ago. different story that I made this one. But yeah, he executive produced this movie, and but I knew him already from that film,
Right.
and I think it was for me, it was a very important mentor in making Hell. So it was for me no question that I will ask him again if he would be a bit more board on this one. And luckily enough, he said yes. We're gonna do this one too. Let's do it together. And he was very, very supportive, especially in, you know, when making the movie. Before, I talked a lot with Roland because he's obviously he has so much experience in making these kind of movies where you have a lot of effects involved and everything. And he also, interestingly enough, he also has very clever ideas on how to maybe also avoid CGI effects and doing things maybe rather practical, or by using, or maybe to where you have to can be tight in the image and where you open up. But then also in editing, he proved to be a really, really great mentor to us, because at a certain point we shot so much material and we got a little bit lost on maybe on the storyline of the movie or something. And because when you're so deep into it, and then he came and he really went several days with us into the editing room, and it was very, very helpful and gave us ideas on what we could change and how we would change it on to make the movie work.
Marvelous. The score was quite beautiful as well, and it was a wonderful companion piece to this film. It was just a wonderful, unexpected getaway for me in watching this film, and it challenged me to think. And we all need that at times, and it also challenged me to remember and appreciate what I have. Oh
wow! Again, man, great what you just said. You should come over and help me with this.
well, Tim, I really appreciate your time.
No, it's really nicely. Well, nice what you just said. Thank you.
Any final thoughts or comments you want to make sure you share?
No, I enjoyed this very much. I hope my English was good enough. It doesn't sound like the muddish sounds to our hero Blake. I would have loved, of course, to talk more about the other actors, but maybe we can do that at a different time or something.
I would love it. I would love it. I appreciate your time. The film is The Colony, or if you're in another country, you may find it as Tides. And we do appreciate the writer-director Tim Fehlbaum for joining us right here, and look forward to your next project as well. And I hope that your Q&A goes well after the screening.
Okay, I hope so too. Thanks, Noel. I enjoyed it very much.
I did too. For Open Dialogue, I'm Noel T. II. That's a wrap. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate you, buddy.
I would say for the many. You know why I'm saying this?
Yes, for the many.
For the many.
For the many.
Maybe all the viewers will find out when viewing the movie. What
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye, Noel. Bye.